to wealthy parents who are already sending their kids to private school. And so there are Republicans and Democrats alike who are opposing this voucher scam in the Texas House and across the state of Texas. We just had a hearing last week on this bill. It lasted about 24 hours. That's how many people showed up to testify. We were there from 8 a.m. on Tuesday to 8 a.m. on Wednesday, straight, listening to testimony. And so many Republicans showed up to speak out against this bill. So there is bipartisan opposition to this effort to privatize our schools. And we've got to do everything we can over the next few days and weeks and months to stop this billionaire scam from becoming law. And so that's where we're going to need all of your help in calling your state reps, calling your state senators, and making your voices heard on this important issue.
Julia, thank you so much. We have so many questions coming in, and so I'm going to, because we want to make sure to have enough time to get to your questions, I'm going to just highlight a few things about Medicaid and kind of what's going on with the lawsuits, and then I'm going to turn it over to Jasmine. So, you know, what I'm really concerned about what's happening federally is the proposed cuts to Medicaid. You know, it's going to have catastrophic impacts on the state of Texas. Over 4.8 million residents, where 16.2% of all Texans are on Medicaid. That's 36% of all the children in the state. Over 50% of every baby born in this state is on Medicaid. 26% of working age adults with disabilities are on Medicaid. 61% of people living in nursing homes are on Medicaid. This is a huge, significant slice of the population. And what they're trying to do is cut $880 billion out of federal Medicaid. And what does that mean? Well, right now, the federal government supplements with Texas 65 cents of every dollar spent on Medicaid. And if all of that money goes out of our system, our state does not historically value Medicaid. As you know, the three of us have all tried to expand Medicaid in the state legislature, and the Republicans have consistently refused to do that because they don't want to pay for it. They don't value seniors in this state. They don't value kids in this state. They don't care if kids are hungry in this state. They don't care if babies are born healthy or if pregnant mothers have coverage postpartum. So this is a significant thing. And what does this mean? It means all these medical providers are going to close because their margins are already very on the edge as it is. We lost 27 rural hospitals. We're going to lose many, many more because they don't have the budget to lose this significant of a percentage of loss of funding. So if you live in rural Texas, it's time to get off it and go vote Democrat and get your people out there. If you care about having a hospital provider within life-saving distance when you have a heart attack, if you have to go drive, 8 hours, you're dead by the time you get there. So this is a significant issue, and it really has a disparate impact on our rural communities because they really rely on Medicaid more than you think to justify and support their facilities. But it's going to have catastrophic impact across the whole state, especially given the assault on women's reproductive health. More babies are being born in this state. More babies are being born on Medicaid in this state, and they're just not getting good health care. And it's something that we should really be alarmed at. As for senior care, we have the sandwich generation of people who are caring for elderly parents and caring for kids. And there's so many people in this squeeze. And somebody referred it the other day as a panini because it's all cheesy and ooey and gooey. It's not a clean sandwich. It's just a mess. And I kind of get that because it's really hard. What do you do when you have young kids and you have aging parents, maybe with Alzheimer's, that need care? When these facilities close, you're going to have to bring them in. You have to where are they going to go if we don't have Medicaid? This is going to have just a huge disruptive impact on Texas families, and it's something I'm really, really, really concerned about. The other thing I want to talk about is kind of the status of some of the lawsuits. Many of the questions in the chat, many of the things say, what are y'all doing? What's happening? Well, one of the things is House Democrats, we are really coordinating and really leading the charge on the legal strategy. We're partnering with various groups. We're sort of the centralized clearinghouse of what's happening on in the courts. And we have a legal task force that's really kind of overseeing all of that. But over 110 lawsuits have been filed challenging the Trump administration in a variety of circumstances. And I want to highlight just sort of the status of a few of them so that just to kind of bring you up to date on what's happening. Probably the thing that's in the news the most today and yesterday is the Alien and Sedition Act. And basically what that means is Trump activated war powers, established in the late 1700s, claiming that we are at war in order to expedite deportations. That has been challenged, and the court has paused that, but Trump deported folks anyway, despite a court order, which is, we are really coming, and I can't wait to have a chat with Jasmine about this, but we're really coming close to a line that everybody said would never be crossed, that the administration wouldn't violate court orders. But that's what all the problem is. You're going to hear Republican pushback that they're just a bunch of Venezuelan drug dealers. And so he should violate a court order because they're just a bunch of Venezuelan drug dealers that he put on that plane. And so they picked a group of people that doesn't have public support, Venezuelan drug dealers. Most people don't support Venezuelan drug dealers and cartel people. However, they picked this group of people to violate the law with, to disobey a court order with, to be able to have public support for their blatant disregard for the court saying you cannot just pick people off a street and put them on a plane and send them out of here without any kind of a due process. And so that is something that we're going to really have to watch, that we're going to have to be on top of going on in the coming days. The other is probationary employee terminations. As you know, the Trump administration came in and wholesale fired just thousands of employees across multiple agencies. Lawsuits were filed, TROs were issued, and then on March 13th, just this past week, the courts ordered them to immediately reinstate these employees. These are employees fired at DOD, Treasury, USDA, Department of Education, the VA, and ongoing. They haven't rehired the people yet. The courts ordered them to hire the people back. They haven't hired the people back. So that's a problem. This is now a second incident where he's violating court orders and not doing what they're supposed to do. Birthright citizenship. They've lost in this one too. The courts have upheld, and the First Circuit Court of Appeals have upheld that there is a constitutional right of citizenship when you're born in this country. The Trump administration is appealing that. As we know, also last week, 4 days ago, he's trying to dismantle completely the Department of Education, laid off over 1,300 staffers. Lawsuits have been filed against on that. A ruling hasn't happened yet. But most of the time, most of these lawsuits, they are losing in the courts. Removal of the NLRB member. The court ordered the immediate reinstatement of Gwyneth Wilcox to the National Labor Relations Board. And I believe she's been put back on based on that. There are multiple, there's been, as I said, there's just tons and tons of lawsuits, but I really want to get to Jasmine. But the message to you is this. The judiciary is doing its job. The judiciary is expeditiously hearing lawsuits from people who have standing. And the question is, who has standing? What is standing? And standing is a legal term of who has the right to bring a claim. And one of the times where we lost was the courts ruled that the union didn't have standing to bring a claim on behalf of employees that were fired. The employees themselves had to bring that claim. And the employees have now brought that claim and are winning on that claim. So part of the issue is who has the legal authority to bring a lawsuit. And so one of the things that House Democrats are doing are really collaborating on all of these laws to ascertain and find out and determine and work with organizations and groups that have the perfect standing and also who are willing to fund these lawsuits. And my message to you, if you are a lawyer out there, we need more army in this fight. We need more soldiers. We need legal soldiers here. If you have people who are calling you, because there's people have been fired all across the state, and all kinds of agencies and all kinds of things, take their case, file a complaint, file a lawsuit for a wrongful termination. The Trump administration, one of the things they're trying to do is reclassify these critical employees. When they're reclassified into a different level, then they don't have the same employment protections. But career civil servant employees have protections in place from wrongful termination. They are supposed to stand the political test of time, administration to administration, and can't be terminated on the political whim of who becomes the president, because we need institutional knowledge across various agencies. I don't know if you saw also just yesterday, there's been a memo leaked about their plans for Social Security, and that they are planning on terminating over 60% of the Social Security workforce and shuttering many, many of the Social Security offices. In addition to that, what they're trying to do is remove an internet identification system to where you can validate who you are online, and make it really hard for old people who don't know online things like myself. I'm technologically challenged. You can ask my staff. But make it really hard for people to verify, make them go into an office. Well, the problem is they're closing the office, and they're closing all the employees they're firing the employees who work at the office, such that you could have months and months and months and months of a delay to just get an appointment. And that is why it's going to be that much more important that you reach out and connect with offices like mine and Jasmine's, because we're here to help. We have amazing staff. But those are just a summary of some of these issues. So Jasmine, turning it over to you, my friend.
Thank you so much to James and Julie. And I am going to try to be as fast as possible, because honestly, you can find politicians speaking all the time. But I really want to make sure that we get to as many questions as possible, because if you're asking this question, surely someone else can benefit to getting the answer to that question. But I do want to pick up on a couple of things that Julie was talking about. I want to clarify two big points for y'all. Number one, I want to bring a little bit more clarity to kind of the CR fight and what it was all about. And the other thing that I want to make sure that I touch on is Elon Musk. And I'm going to try to do that very quickly. So for the first part, where Julie left off, she was talking about the Social Security Administration. Well, one of the things in the continuing resolution that was ultimately passed, not only out of the House, but out of the Senate, it actually called for the shuttering of approximately, I believe, 22 Social Security offices around the country. In addition to that, at the current funding levels for housing vouchers, there are going to be 32,000 less housing vouchers that we will fund. Now, mind you, this is at our current levels. We're not talking about the people that are currently losing their jobs, the new people that will need these housing vouchers. In addition to that, what they were trying to do, or what they did do, is, let me see, how do I explain this? So the way that our budget works is that it's line items. So I've got my line for my rent. I don't want to use that example, but the point is, when they did things such as the NIH funding, basically we kept saying, oh, it's a blank check, it's a blank check, it's a blank check. That is because without Congress going through and doing our appropriations, we did not lay out line by line how the money should be spent in those categories. And normally a continuing resolution is just to get you over the hump until you finish doing your work. And the problem is that this continuing resolution is going until the end of our fiscal year, which is September 30th. And so that means no line items. That means that, for instance, in my district, we had $13 million of community project funds that had already been approved through the Committee of Jurisdiction, that was going to come out in the single appropriations bills and be passed. That is $13 million for some nonprofit or city or something where they really had a project that they needed me to help them out on. That $13 million has been deleted. And the reason that we were fighting so hard with the Senate was not just because the cuts were so bad. But there was a little bit of a misconception. Julie talked to you about the court cases. And so there were some people saying, well, the courts are going to shut down. And we were like, that's not true. Like, the courts don't shut down when we're in a shutdown. And so the reason that I bring that up is because, as Julie has stated, the most important and best thing we got going for us is the courts. And while I'm talking about the courts, let me make y'all aware. We, as members of Congress, do not have standing to sue. So I know that it's frustrating because they're doing things like infringing upon our rights as members of Congress, but we are not allowed to sue. So I know some of you are probably saying, get out there and sue them, but we're not allowed to. So I want to make sure that y'all understand that. I also want to make sure that y'all understand that if the government has shut down, that did not shut down the courts. That's number two. And now number three, let me roll into kind of the overall frustration with the Senate not holding the line. There's a lot of frustration for a lot of different reasons. But one of the really big things is that this was one of the only times that they'll be able to use the 60-person threshold, okay, which the Republicans cannot meet on their own. And so what we wanted them to do was to extract some type of guarantees in the continuing resolution, right? So some kind of guarantee as it relates to Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, because once we get to reconciliation, it is a simple majority vote. And that is where they are going to deal us the biggest blows with the tax breaks that they're going to give to the billionaires, and with all of basically taking money and healthcare away from those that need it, right? So whether we're talking about SNAP benefits or whether we're talking about healthcare benefits, they're going to lose those. So we needed them to use this only point of leverage and actually use it for good, for something. They extracted absolutely nothing. That is absolutely insane. The only thing they were saying is we're keeping the government open. And the reality is that right now, Musk and Trump have been slashing the federal government. They got rid of 50% of the people that were at Department of Education, as James has talked to you about how they are trying to privatize everything. They're trying to take our public dollars and they're trying to send it so that only the rich few can have access to education. That is the same thing with defunding Department of Education. Do you understand that students that may be relying upon, say, something like federal aid may not get that federal aid if the Department of Education doesn't exist, because that's where FAFSA is going to be processed? Also, those kids that are getting the reduced or free lunches at their schools, that all comes through the Department of Education as well. And so what we see is a party that espouses that they're of law and order, that espouses that they are pro-life. And then when it comes down to how they operate, when it comes down to their legislation, they are anything but. And I understand if you are sitting there and you are frustrated with the Democrats, because y'all, I'm frustrated too. I am. But I want y'all to recognize that there are some wins. And if we stick together, we can have more and more wins every single day. Because what Julie did is she summarized what was going on in the courts. Now, she didn't say anything about partisanship when she talked about the courts, because we're right on the law. Because all we have is a bunch of lawless fools that are running around in this country and elsewhere, unfortunately. And so here's the deal. It's Democratic attorney generals and governors and even some mayors of cities that are bringing this litigation. And it's our labor unions that are bringing this litigation. And so, yes, Democrats are fighting in every single way. And I know that it's not the flashy stuff because they don't have all the cameras at the courtrooms and things like that. And maybe we should be doing a legal update and making it really cute and quick and to the point so that you can know that we are scoring, we are winning. But the other crazy part of this is also what Julie talked about, is that we have a lawless convicted felon that is sitting in the White House. So guess what? He doesn't care about violating the law. He never has cared about violating the law. And frankly, the high court has given him permission to do whatever he wants to do. And that's exactly what he's doing. He is testing the limits. Now, let me go out and violate a court order. Even as a member of Congress, I can guarantee you that they would have me in the clank clank. So I'm just saying, I mean, if they're going to be this egregious and this bold, then I think that we need to meet them with the same energy. So we will see what type of energy these judges have for these court orders. But we are in a constitutional crisis, not just because we have this lawless thug sitting in the White House, but also because we have Republicans that could care less about doing right. I mean, there are Republicans that will tell me behind closed doors that they don't like Elon, tell me behind closed doors that they think that what Donald Trump is doing is terrible, and they will still take whatever votes and continue to empower him because they are cowards. So I want y'all to know that they recognize, or at least some of them recognize, that this is absolutely off the chain and ridiculous, but they will not stand up to him. And I don't think that our founders contemplated that people would be so arrogant to run for office and go to DC and then just say, well, I'm just here to please you. I just think that they never thought that the same arrogant people that would run for office would then turn over all of their rights. So the final point that I'll make is that Doge is fake, stupid, and just, I don't know what to say. We've not had one person from Doge show up to any committees. Not one. Definitely not Elon. I mean, he's so big and bad. Again, I'm going to send it out to him. Hey, come see me, boo. Like, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. So I want y'all to also know that Democrats are not for waste, fraud, and abuse. And it may seem like the Republicans are doing something because they're firing people. Excuse me. But here's the thing. Even if you fired the entire federal workforce, you would potentially save maybe 4% of our entire budget. 4% if you fired the entire workforce. Now, mind you, some of the people that they're firing, we're not even spending that much money to actually make sure that they stay employed. There are fees that are collected that pay for some of their positions. So don't believe that this is all about making sure that we're going to be fiscally responsible. In fact, it's doing just the opposite. Same thing with the tariffs. It is doing just the opposite. You don't have to believe me. Go and do your own research. The last time that Trump was in office and he started with these crazy tariffs, he definitely was not as bad last time on the tariffs. But the soybean farmers almost lost everything when he went into this tariff war. And then ultimately, we ended up paying the soybean farmers close to $8 billion to bail them out because of how stupid Donald Trump wanted to be. So history is repeating itself, but on steroids. And the thing is when you start to cut people off from a certain supply because it's just too expensive, then they go and try to find another place to get those items. And so once they diversify their supply chain, even in 4 years, if we come back and say, oh, we got rid of the fools, the smart people are back now, guess what? A lot of our people still will not have that market to sell to because now they have gone elsewhere. And right now, we are not reliable as a foreign friend, whether we're talking about trade or whether we're talking about like making sure that we keep the wars on the right side and keep the other wars on the other side. So that's all I've got to say. Doge is stupid. Elon is terrible. Don't believe anything he's saying. He ain't saving us no money. And we want to get to your questions.
Yeah. So we have Jasmine. Thank you. James. Amazing. So we have a ton of questions here, like over hundreds of them. We have lots and lots. I'm going to try to summarize and group some of them together because there seems to be a pretty consistent theme. The number one question is, what can we do? What can we do if our Republican representatives aren't listening to us, aren't responding to us? What can we do to help elevate? So, Jasmine, let's just start with you. What can people do?
Yeah, so first of all, if they are having town halls, show up. I truly believe in people power. Again, I know we lost with the Senate, but just so y'all know, there actually were some senators that actually flipped their votes. So we didn't flip enough votes, but you did flip some votes. So definitely always keep the pressure up. We also know that the official guidance from the NRC CC is to not do any town halls. But I think that it's really important that we recognize that things such as Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, they are not partisan issues, right? Like whether or not your life expectancy is cut short because you're in rural Texas versus urban Texas, that's not a partisan issue. And so if they won't come and do town halls, then I say set up your own town halls, right? Like set up these community meetings and you get enough people there, get the closest member who will come, the closest member of Congress to give you an update, even if it's via Zoom. So do not feel like you're powerless because you have someone who doesn't want to listen to you. In addition to that, I made it clear that the people that are fighting right now are our attorney generals and some of our governors, but you need to make sure, and some of our mayors. So we've got local elections that are going to be coming up here in a second, whether it's the school boards, making sure that you've got the right representation on those school boards when we're talking about education and vouchers and things like that, or whether we're talking about the mayor and the city council. It is important because right now we don't have what we need on the federal level. So these local elections matter just that much more. So organize and help those people out, and definitely call on us at any point in time and we will get someone routed to you. Just pull people together in your community and start to bridge that gap, because they have decided that they were going to divide us and make us hate each other. And honestly, I really don't care. As much as they call me a racist, I don't care what color anybody is. What I care about is that we all survive. I care about the masses. I care about us truly being a united states of America. And right now they have us completely divided, and there's more of us that want things to be in order than in disorder.
James, what can people do?
Yeah, I just want to pick up on the point Jasmine just made. There are more of us than there are of them. The only minority destroying America is the billionaires. And so big money is certainly powerful. I don't want to underestimate that, but it is nothing compared to people power. You know, these billionaires like Tim Dunn and Ferris Wilkes and Jeff Yass and Betsy DeVos, they may have bought our governor here at the state capitol, but they don't own this state. The state capitol doesn't belong to these billionaire mega donors. It belongs to you. It belongs to the people of Texas. And we've beaten this voucher scam before. 2 years ago, the reason Greg Abbott couldn't get this scam passed into law is because Democrats and Republicans stood together in a bipartisan majority to reject vouchers and fund our public schools. And so we can do this again, but we have got to light up the phones. We've got to fill the email inboxes. We've got to show up in person and advocate with our state reps and our state senators about the importance of funding our schools and not diverting tax dollars to unaccountable private schools. You know, I think we have a real good chance of beating this again this year, but we're going to have to get mobilized. The one plug I'll give, please go to this website, don'tdefundmyschool.com. I'll say it again, don'tdefundmyschool.com. When you go to that website, you can type in your local school district and it'll show you how much money will be drained from your local schools if a voucher passes. It also gives you action items for how you can contact your state legislators. Please do that and then pass that website along to everyone you know. That would make a huge impact in the coming days and weeks.
Yeah, and I just kind of want to add on to that. You know, the reality of it is this. The American people really handcuffed Congress in a lot of ways. Congress has two huge powers to regulate an unchecked executive, and that is the power of impeachment and subpoena power over committees, where you have the ability to subpoena people from the executive branch to come to Congress and to testify in a public hearing as to what, under oath, subject to the penalties of perjury, as to what's going on. The Republicans are in charge of both of those things. And when the American people voted in this past election, it really handcuffed Democrats as the minority party because they took away so many of our levers of oversight. We're having shadow hearings, we're writing letters, we're doing all kinds of other things, organizing lawsuits. But the main thing is to harness the power of the people. Just like what James was saying, there's no substitution for people power. And I love Jasmine's idea of everyone organizing their own town halls. That's why we put this town hall together, is we wanted to reach people beyond our districts. That's why we're so thrilled the Texas Democratic Party offered to be a partner with us to broadcast this out as broadly as we can. I think I can speak for everyone here, but we're happy to come and support your town halls that you can organize and help promote, because we need people. We're willing to go and travel and be on these things Zooms. I know I am, and I think my other two friends are too. But I think that's a great idea. But you can't just sit back and wait for somebody else to do some organizing. You have to do it yourself. And that means get your friends, your book clubs, your organizations, your PTA friends, your church groups, your neighborhood groups. You're going to have to actually talk to people, and you can't just scream at your TV. You have to really get out there and start raising more hell. Another one of the questions that we keep getting on here is why don't Democrats communicate enough? How can we communicate better? Well, I'm here to tell you, I communicate and everybody, and every way we can. Now, Jasmine is the queen of the communicators of the three of us. I mean, look at all her followers online, and all the stuff she says. But we're all out there every single day talking to people. We're doing videos, we're YouTubing, we're doing this, that, and the other. We're having meetings. One-on-ones, is broadcasting speeches on the House floor. We're doing everything we can do to communicate. The question is, are you following us? Are you helping us amplify? Are you creating your own messaging? Because there's Democrats across the country and across the state who are out here every single day putting stuff out there to communicate our message, but it only goes so far if you don't help elevate it. So let's take a quick minute here. Jasmine, what are all your socials? How can people find you?
So I'm always Jasmine for us on every social media platform. That's my campaign side. And then we're Rep Jasmine on the other. So that's Blue Sky, that's X, that's X, I guess. That's also on TikTok. That's also Instagram. That's also Facebook. That's also Threads. So we are on every single thing, and YouTube. Sorry, we're on YouTube as well. And so that's every single platform, because I do believe that everyone takes their information in different spaces. Everybody has their preference. And typically it has been kind of demographically, like we've decided that the older crowd is on Facebook. Yes, I'm still on X because they changed the rules that if I basically try to shut down my account, somebody else can reopen it with my name, with all my tweets and that kind of stuff. So yes, I go to the cesspool known as X as well, just to keep one of the maggots from getting my account. But I do want to say that it is also important for y'all to tell us really what it is that you want to see more of. So let's make this, so for sure, quickly start putting in the chat. I know that TDP staff is watching. Tell us what more would you like to see. I tend to do all TV. I tend to do all podcasts. I do national radio, and I do all social media. James is the most viral member of the Texas House for sure. He consistently goes viral and is one of the few House members that gets invited to still do national media. And Julie is currently building all of her federal kind of pages up, so you can go do definitely her official side, because that's where you're going to get the vast majority of the things that are coming directly out of Congress. That's where you'll see what she's doing in committee, because we're not allowed to post anything from committee on our campaign accounts. So anything that she does, that's where you're going to get it. So make sure that you're following her, because that's a brand spanking new account that she has to build up.
Yeah, that's Rep Julie Johnson. And then I'm at Julie Johnson TX, or Julie Johnson for Texas, pretty much on the campaign side. What they have really pretty strict rules on the federal side between campaign and official. And so just like Jasmine said, we have official accounts everywhere. and we have campaign accounts everywhere. So go and like, you'll have to like us all about 10 times. James, where can they find you?
You can also find me on all the social media platforms. I am on Blue Sky, so find me on there. You can also sign up for my email newsletter. I promise I do not spam. I send a minimum or a maximum of one email a week, no more than that. And I write the emails myself, so they're not just the kind of typical emails you get. And I try to keep people informed on how they can help with state level politics. So please go to my website, jamestalarico.com, and you can just sign up to be a part of our email newsletter.
I forgot about that one. James is good for reminding me on that one. So yes, you may get my campaign emails. That comes from a whole other side. But we do have official emails, and my official emails come out once a week. You end up getting videos of me in committee. You get some of my interviews that I may have done other places. You get pictures along with summaries of meetings that I've taken in my office. So it's just a very transparent kind of space. And then also any upcoming events that we have going on in the district, they're all there. Definitely it is district specific, but obviously a lot of good kind of federal information overall in there. And anyone is allowed to sign up. So that's crockett.house.gov. You can sign up for the newsletter there.
Yes, and you can sign up on my website too. The same sort of thing. juliejohnhouse.whatever.gov. We all have newsletters. You can sign up. Please just go in and just pour yourself a glass of wine and sign up to all of our stuff. And then other Democrats too, who you're interested in following. There's a lot of people putting a lot of content out there. So we're running down on time, but I want to try to get to another couple of questions. So let's try to do some speed rounds. Another question here is, what are we going to do if he just ignores it all and we go into a full-on constitutional crisis? What happens?
You know, a lot of the people that really would have been most helpful on the Republican side retired, and retired early. But I think that we've got to impress upon what I would consider to be the old school Republicans that it's time, especially if they are already thinking about leaving and they're done with politics. I think that that's the time that we really need to try to move for impeachment. And just for everyone who's out there like, oh, y'all should be impeaching them. Y'all should be impeaching them. Y'all, we ain't got the votes. We ain't got the votes. We ain't got the votes. Yes, we won on day one. I felt like there was probably enough to impeach him. So don't think that just because we haven't filed articles of impeachment that it is because we think that he is doing a great job and there's no reason to impeach him. We absolutely believe that, but we also know how to do the math, and we don't have the votes. So we would need to work on some people to try to get there. But I think at that point in time, we've got to really start to apply the pressure really hard if he's going to continue to ignore court orders.
Right. I think, at that point also the public will have to have some serious marching in the streets and have just unmitigated universal, millions of people marching on Washington, just huge uprisings. And I think another thing on this issue that I kind of want to talk about before is we need people to run for office. We can't have Democrats not on the damn ballot. Hello. Yes. We need people to run for office.
Amen.
So, this is I flipped my state house seat. I think James did too in 2018 after the last Trump presidency. We flipped 12 house seats in the state of Texas and 2 congressional seats and 2 Senate seats. And nobody thought that some of those house seats would ever flip. But they did. And so this is the cycle, this upcoming cycle. We have to win elections. We have to win the municipals. There are Democrats running against Republicans in the cities all across the state, and we have to get involved. So if you do anything else, go look up your local municipal elections for city council and school board and go talk to your neighbors and make sure you freaking vote. Do not be one of the people of the 10% of people that vote in municipal elections. We need to start sending the message. Electoral wins send messages that we're not having it. And so if we have municipal sweeps across the state, that will send a huge message to Republicans of, oh snap, maybe we're overstepping. If voters don't care, if voters don't turn out, and if voters don't vote, they're like, oh, they're fine. They don't care. They don't care at all with what we're doing. And so, I think that's a huge situation. So make sure you get involved and vote, and make a huge pledge to vote in 2026. And don't sit this one out. We had 8 million registered Texans not vote in this past election. And so we have to do better, and thinking, well, it doesn't matter. Well, they're learning it matters now. Look at all the stuff that's happening. It matters now.
Yeah, and one of the interesting things that we just learned at the retreat that we just had, our Dem Caucus retreat we just had, was that it was only a little over 7,000 votes that made the difference in the Republicans controlling the House and the Democrats controlling the House. 7,000 in the entire country made the difference. So don't let anyone convince you that your vote doesn't count, because it's just not true. Literally 7,000 more Republicans came out in 3 districts, and that is why they now have control over the House. It is absolutely ridiculous. And I want to say approximately 51% of the races that were on the ballot this past cycle in the state of Texas, they went uncontested. We've got to start at a very minimum, making them spend some money, making them run scared, making them answer the hard questions. So make sure you get out there and run for office or encourage somebody else, because if we can have this fool running the United States, don't doubt yourself. Don't doubt yourself. I'm sure if you're here, you've got enough qualifications to be something.
James, quickly, we've had this question quite a bit. How do we have hope?
Well, there's always reason to hope. I had in my office here at the state capitol last week the families from Uvalde, the parents who lost their little babies in that classroom at Robb Elementary. And they continue to this day to make the 160-mile trek from Uvalde, Texas to the state capitol in Austin to advocate for gun safety reforms. And they made progress last session. They convinced several key Republicans to support their bill to raise the age to buy one of these weapons from 18 to 21. And they're not giving up yet. And so if they can summon the strength and the courage to keep going after what they've been through, then we can do the same thing. I mean, I look back to history for inspiration, and there are people who did a lot more with a lot less than all of us. So we don't have any excuses. The 3 elected officials here on this call, we don't have any excuses. And I know the 3 of us can always do better, and we're always questioning ourselves to think, are we doing everything we can? And then all of you on this call can always do more. And so, my faith teaches me that there's always light in the darkness, and there is always reason to hope. And I hang on to that in moments like this, and I hope you do too.
Well, you can't end on a better note than that. So James, Jasmine, thank you all so much. I had this idea to do this town hall, and I asked both of them, and they both said yes within 10 seconds. And because we want to try to reach more folks across the state, reach out to us, reach out to Monique, reach out to the TDP, get involved. And and just thank you all for joining us. We have all your questions here. We're going to circulate them to everyone. And then hopefully I'm going to try to do some videos in the next couple days to try to answer some of your questions that we didn't get to tonight. Hopefully James and Jasmine will have time to do that as well. And we'll try to keep this conversation going and have more of these. So thank you all so much for being on with us tonight. Monique, back to you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. I'm so excited to have you all here today. I just wanted to make one little call to action. If we can put on the screen here our QR codes from our team to make sure that y'all get involved in some of our organizing efforts. And then if you can, by all means, please make a contribution to Texas Democratic Party to help us with all of the organizing efforts and everything that we're doing all across the state. So thank you all so much again for joining us tonight. Thank you, Congresswoman Julie Johnson, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, and State Representative James Talarico. We appreciate all of you joining us tonight, and we will follow up with y'all tomorrow. Have a good night.
Good night, everybody.
Thank y'all.